Imagine this. You're getting home from a long day of work or school, and you're super tired, you're super hungry, and you still have that online communication homework to do. You probably even procrastinated to the last day to do it. So, you're just super grumpy. You're gonna head to the fridge to get a quick snack to get some energy in. You open up the fridge, you look at all the contents, and you notice that you don't have much. Either somebody ate all your food, or there was no food to begin with. But if you look closely, you might have three simple ingredients that you would have never thought of to make one of the best simple sandwiches ever created: the grilled cheese sandwich. I've been making grilled cheese sandwiches ever since I've been able to reach the stovetop. For me, it's very convenient. It's one of my favorite sandwiches, easy to make, not a lot of stuff goes into it, very few steps. And I can relate with students because I know that if you're in a bind, you have very little resources, very little time. It's something that's very cheap and not very time consuming, and it can be done real quick. So first thing we're gonna talk about today is ingredients. The first ingredient is your bread. Second ingredient, your cheese, and third ingredient, your butter. With those ingredients, it's really a big preference of what you want. I choose for my bread, I choose Sara Lee Original. For my butter, I choose Country Crock. And then for my cheese, I like to use shredded cheese. Shredded Munster cheese is actually my favorite. It kind of tastes like mozzarella, just a little bit more sharper, and it melts very well. Second thing we're going to be talking about is buttering up your bread. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to leave your choice of butter out on the table counter for just a little bit, so it can be a little bit easier to scrape with your butter knife onto your bread. And when you're scraping onto your bread, you're going to want a nice even coat all over the bread, the whole surface, not just little portions, but the whole thing. You want to get an even coat because you don't want one side to cook more than the other. Third thing you're going to do is you're going to put the bread on the skillet. I like to set my skillet at a medium heat, not too hot and then not too weak, because you don't want any portions of the bread to be more cooked than the other. If you say you have a small pan, or your oven stovetop's not that good, you're gonna have a hard time getting it all in the right spot. So at a medium heat, it gives you enough leeway to move around and make sure it all gets evenly toasted at the same time. And with that said, you're also going to want to check your bread very often. You don't want it to burn, but you also don't want it to be not that crispy, because then if it's not that crispy, it's going to break apart, it's going to be soggy, it's just not going to taste good. And so when you have our fourth step is when you have the bread on the skillet, you're going to want to add your cheese, whatever cheese you chose. And I do it while it's on the skillet because I feel like it's not as messy as if you were to put the cheese and the bread on the skillet at the same time. I feel like there's a lot of the cheese falls out, especially if you use shredded cheese. Maybe if you use slice, it won't happen like that, but I use shredded, so it gets very messy, and I have to scrape off the cheese at the end, and it's a big mess. So if you do it while it's on the skillet, it's a lot less messier. The amount of cheese you put on is really up to you. I like my grilled cheese sandwiches very gooey, so I tend to put a lot of cheese. And you really only have to put the cheese on one slice of bread. You don't need to do both, because if you're doing both, the transfer might be messy. A lot of cheese will spill off, and it'll just be a big mess. So the amount of cheese is up to you. It's all preference. And our fifth and final step is making sure to take off the sandwich at the right time. You're gonna want your bread to be nice and toasty, not to where it's burnt, and then not to where it's soggy, just like earlier. You want the right, which I guess is still your preference, but you're gonna want the right crispiness to your toast, to where you bite into it and it's just delicious, very delicious. And so for me, that usually takes about maybe 3 or 4 minutes. It depends on also on what heat temperature you use. Heat setting that you use. depends a lot on that, but for me it takes about 3 to 4 minutes. So that is how you make a grilled cheese sandwich in 5 steps. Today we talked about the ingredients, buttering the bread, moving the bread to the skillet, adding the cheese, and taking off the sandwich at the right time. With this information, I hope that you can remember these 5 easy steps, and the next time that you're hungry and you don't have many resources, you think about the nice, tasty, easy to make grilled cheese sandwich.